WWNN Pompano Beach, Boca Raton, Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
AM 1470, WNN, with more of what you need to know. Tune in for The Jill Dane Show, Sundays at 3 p.m. on South Florida's Health and Wealth Network, AM 1470, WNN.
AM 1470 with even more information you can use. Are you suffering with chronic pain? Tune in for No Bones About It with Dr. Alvin Stein. You'll learn non-invasive techniques that can help you get rid of your pain without the use of harmful drugs or surgery. That's No Bones About It with Dr. Alvin Stein. Tuesday mornings at 11, right here on AM 1470 WNN, South Florida's Health and Wealth Network.
Hi, it's Jay Foster. Join us 7 days a week from 2 to 3 p.m. for Health Connection Radio. We'll talk about natural cholesterol control, toxic metal syndrome, how to reverse bone loss, and the latest scientific research on vitamins and minerals. We'll have fascinating guests, and we'll take lots of your calls, too. So join us 7 days a week from 2 to 3 p.m. for Health Connection Radio right here on WNN.
Talk health. Talk wealth. Talk politics. Talk 1470. WNN.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. The content of the following program, including all statements from the hosts and guests, is to provide general information and commentary about the law. Under no circumstances does any statement made by the host or guest to a caller or listener constitute legal advice or the formation of an attorney-client relationship, and the material from this program shall not be viewed as substitute for a personal consultation with an attorney. Now, prepare yourself to be informed and entertained by Gus Bravo and Neil Kotze, two AV-rated trial lawyers who have been practicing law for a combined total of nearly 40 years. For the next 30 minutes, they will share their insight and commentary on important legal issues affecting all of us.
A young man and his fiancée die in a tragic car accident. As they arrive at the pearly gates, they look at St. Peter and they say, "Well, we were engaged, but we didn't get married yet, and we're Catholic, and we can't have relations with each other until we're married. Is there any way now that we've arrived in heaven so that we can have a little fun together, that you could find some way to let us get married?" And St. Peter, oh, gosh, okay. He looks at him. He says, here's your apartment. I'll be back as soon as I can. Well, 2 years go by, and the couple have no idea what's going on. And finally, St. Peter arrives with a priest and says, okay, you can get married. And the young couple look at him and say, well, I know we told you we're Catholic, and I'm sure that we would never, ever want to get a divorce, but we just want to make sure before we go through this, is there any chance we could get a divorce in heaven? And St. Peter said, are you guys crazy? You know how long it took me to get a priest? It's going to take me 10 times that long to find a lawyer. I'm Neil Kotze. Welcome to Attorney Confidential.
I like that. I actually appreciated when you said, come together, and you brought your hands together.
Yeah.
I think for those watching online, I think they would appreciate that. You're starting to, kind of reach deep down the
bottom of the barrel. I'm running out of
there.
jokes. I'll have to tell true stories that are humorous because they involve lawyers, but I'm running out of jokes.
Well, today's October 26, 2015. Very important day. You wouldn't know because obviously it has no significance to you. But
it's 2 days after my birthday.
Oh, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
Actually, today's my daughter's birthday.
Oh, that's right.
So happy birthday, Sophia, and happy belated birthday to you. Are you finally?
No, I'm not at the big Hawaii age yet.
There's some people that would have absolutely no clue what that
Hawaii
reference is.
5-0.
Yeah, I know.
I'm Hawaii 49.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I'll
49?
be 49. Yeah, I'll be 50 next year.
You don't look
if
at
I survive that
day
long.
over 48.
Right?
That's
right.
No, actually, 49, not bad.
Next year, I'll finally be half my IQ.
So maybe I should nice. Maybe I should let you do the words of wisdom near the end and see what kind of wisdom you can espouse on our listeners. Anyways, look, there's a whole lot of stuff we are prepared to talk about today. But for anyone listening that wants to call in and ask us questions, about any kind of legal issue, the number is 888-565-1470. Otherwise, you'll get more jokes about age and
lawyers
and
we'll
priests.
come up with a joke about an old lawyer.
There you
Right
go.
there.
By
the way, if I offended any Catholics, I'm sorry.
I'm sure.
Not really.
I'm
an equal opportunity
I
offender.
am just going to leave that.
Right, exactly.
So, something interesting happened over the weekend, and I think I can tie it into the law in some way.
This should be impressive.
It's a simple one. Exactly 2 weeks ago, we were talking about the Dolphin coach getting fired. And Saturday, the shellacking the University of Miami experienced, 58-0.
That is
absolute
incredible.
worst home loss ever. I actually was at the stadium when the last game played at the Orange Bowl. The last football game by University of Miami played at the Orange Bowl was against University of Virginia. Ironically enough, Al Golden was coaching, I think the defensive coordinator of the Cavaliers at that time.
Yep.
47-0. The Cavaliers beat UM that night. And I thought, it could never get worse, right? It could never get worse.
I think that was the halftime score, wasn't it?
46 it was 42-0 at
42-0
halftime, and they actually took mercy on them, I think. This is like the second half. Well, Al Golden was fired yesterday. Late last night, they immediately terminated him of his duties. And I thought it was interesting as reading a bunch of the message boards, and they talked about, look, from a business perspective, when you have an employee, which he was, that clearly it's not working out, you need to cut ties immediately, because otherwise you send the signal to the rest of the workforce, the rest of the folks in your business that, you actually will tolerate less than, what the expectation is. So I thought it was interesting comment that, look, you got to sever ties immediately. We always talk about employees, employer side.
And there's another reason. I mean, there's the message you send to the workforce, but if you don't fire someone for committing an atrocity,
which 58-0 at home.
And then, I thought that was a good choice of words, actually.
Yes.
And then later you fire them for jaywalking. That's not going to play well legally, potentially, if they claim that you fired them for a wrong reason.
Right.
So you've got to be careful when you choose to let people get away with murder. Then you're going to have to be really careful what else you let them get away with, because eventually it's going to become harder to fire them if they're in a protected class, if there's something they could complain of that they were fired unrelated to their actual work ethic or their performance. So if you have somebody that commits an atrocity like that and you want to fire them, and that is the time to do it, because it's really hard for someone to come back and say, I was fired because of my race or religion, when you just lost 58-0 to Clemson. So in that regard, now's the time to fire somebody if you're going to, from a legal standpoint.
That is absolutely true. And look, I mean, I can't imagine it getting worse than 58-0.
Right, and University of Miami, big school, they called their lawyers and said, can we fire him? And probably if the lawyer was a fan at all, he said, absolutely, please do.
Well, several of the trustee members are not surprisingly attorneys. They did have a meeting yesterday. They called the board. They had a meeting about basically the way to part ways with them. The athletic director is the one that conveys obviously the firing. But what's interesting, this is a private school, so they don't have to disclose any of the information about salary or whatnot. So we don't know. The guess is he was, you don't feel too bad. He was making about $2.5 million a year. And actually, that makes him, I think, the 40th highest paid coach in Division I football. I mean, that's like
$2.5 million is the 40th?
2.7 actually, to be exact. And because Saban is making $6 million plus. Saban, the coach at Alabama, or Satan, as some people would say here.
And those guys, they only coach 12 games. I mean, the basketball coaches don't make.
Here's what's interesting, and this is for you guys, folks that listening that are thinking about negotiating your next salary. Obviously, you can negotiate as much as you can, but it's not. And with lawyers, we talk about this as well. Our service, our stock, if you will, is our time. But as we know, there's different value components of the time. We may spend an hour on a particular case, but we may save the client hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, by just some real critical, significant decision that we help them, navigate them through. Conversely, you have a matter where you spend 100 hours, but the reality has been pretty cut and paste. You need to have legal work, but the value is much lower. And so with the Saban or the college football example, you have, yes, it's only 12 games. But if you look at football Saturdays on those college campuses, you look at the attendance, you look at the alumni, you look at the donations, you look at the enhanced enrollment, the spotlight, university playing on these national games. It all
they don't make up these salaries for no reason. I mean, obviously they check balance. They're paying someone $6 million a year. They figure they're making $10 million because of that person.
Value. Value.
And college football is still more popular than college basketball throughout the country. I think that, but college basketball coaches, I don't think there's a college basketball coach that approaches $6 million. I think Roy Williams at Carolina is right over $1 million. I
think they'd make more than that. I think you got.
They have endorsements. I don't think Krzyzewski makes $6 million. And
spell Krzyzewski. Let's do
as much as it pains me to admit how great a coach he is.
Krzyzewski?
KRZY something, and once you get past that, I have no idea.
And then KI at the end.
Okay. Other than that,
but again, look,
and Wojciechowicz, who played for him, is another one.
I think you meant Wojciechowski.
No, No. One of those guys was on Barney Miller, and one played basketball for Duke. I'm not going to remember. Maybe Wojciechowicz was on Barney Miller, and Wojciechowski played basketball.
I think Wojciechowski is the basketball player.
Okay.
You just aged yourself. Hawaii 5.0 wasn't bad enough.
Well, Hawaii 5.0 is on now, though. I could claim that I was talking about the current version and not the one with Jack Lord. Oops.
Which we know, anyone who knows Neil knows that that's exactly the one we were talking about.
Who was also Felix Leiter in James Bond movie well before he played Steve McGarrett.
Were these the Sean Connery James Bond or the other guy?
He was in the Sean Connery era, I believe.
Wow. I wasn't even born there, Neil. I'm sorry.
Well, anyway.
I'm sorry. Anyways, so back on point to the extent we're trying to make one. I think the idea is when you're negotiating a salary, a lot of times folks, and we have some executive clients that are able to obviously negotiate a much higher salary. It's not based simply on time. It's not a time component. We're talking about value. And so in Al Golden's, I think we're getting a message.
We're getting a message that Calipari is the highest paid basketball coach at $6 million in salary.
I was right.
Plus Nike, plus media. We have been corrected by our producer.
No. You have been corrected.
I have been corrected.
If we replay the tape, I'm not so sure that's
And Roy
accurate.
Williams only gets a little over $1. That's just a trap. I mean, wow.
Well, I think he gets a lot more.
And Roy Williams is honest, too. And anyway.
Well, I'm not so sure about that either. But anyways, I think the idea is what's interesting in Golden's scenario is that he had a buyout. And so his buyout, in the event that something like this happens, he's going to get, I believe, again, private school, we don't know, in the high 7 figures of some type of buyout. I mean, which is...
For all our listeners that are engaged in negotiations for 7-figure salaries...
Please call. 954.
Right, exactly. Please call us too. But yeah, you have to negotiate when you're negotiating your contract, even in the normal employment context, buyouts and other language like that.
There are things that people don't realize that they have the ability to negotiate, and maybe that's the bigger point.
Severance packages, buyouts. I mean, we just actually negotiated one for somebody.
But the time to do it is before, and not after.
It's like a prenup.
Which given the joke of the day that you gave him, I think it's very apropos.
Like a prenup. I mean, you've got to negotiate it before, because once you're
what?
All right, not going there. It's like the why buy the cow if you get the milk for free, right? You got to be.
What do you mean you're not going there? You just went there.
I sound so terrible right now.
But look,
I'm going to get hit when I get home. But
I think the point is these are the types of items.
Right.
These are the types of. It's not just about salary. There are many. You mentioned severance, vacation. Maybe what are the types of events that you could be fired for, and how much notice, and there's a whole slew of things that we can continue talking about. But we're coming up on our break, and I think this is probably a good time to take a break.
Absolutely.
Right, so that we can gather our thoughts and continue on the second half of the show.
All right.
You're listening to Gus and Neil, Attorney Confidential with Gus and Neil.
You're listening to Attorney Confidential with Gus and Neil. If you have a comment, question, or Attorney Confidential with Gus and Neil is being brought to you by the law offices of Neil D. Codsey and Bravo Law. Bravo Law is a business litigation firm known for providing common sense solutions to small businesses and individuals throughout South Florida. Mr. Bravo is rated AV by Martindale Hubble and Superb by AVVO, the highest ratings available from these two entities. The law offices of Neil D. Kotze is a litigation boutique with offices in Broward and Miami-Dade counties. Mr. Kotze is a veteran trial lawyer with nearly 25 years of jury trial experience. He is also a two-time recipient of the South Florida Daily Business Review's Most Effective Lawyer Award, a recipient of numerous awards for providing pro bono legal services, and has been recognized by the National Law Council. Call our office, 786-464-0841 or 954-790-6711 and get informed.
You know who with FAU. It's FAU Today with Corey Mitchell. It's time.
You're listening to Attorney Confidential with Gus and Neil. If you have a comment, question, or just want to contribute to the conversation, call the show at 888-565-1470 and share your thoughts on what's going on. Now, back to Gus and Neil for more Attorney Confidential.
And we're back with Attorney Confidential with Gus and Neil. Neil, I'm sorry, I got to call you out on this thing because you when we were interrupted by a producer trying to confirm
what I told you in confidence during the break.
Absolutely, there's no secret here.
Okay, we were joking about my age earlier, and I guess as you get older, your vision's not very good. So I told Gus during the break when our producer was holding up the sign about calamari, I'm staring at it through the glass going, why is he holding up something about calamari? Maybe it's
Freudian slip.
That I like calamari, but I'm thinking, okay, now I can read it. 6.3 million calamari. I mean, I'm not that hungry. Anyway, so that's my confessional.
Five will do.
5-0.
Anyways, we've been talking about one topic, and I think this is probably a good time to shift and punt. There's a sports reference. I know there was another topic that you wanted to address.
I added both a confession and an observation at the same time. The confession is, don't make fun of me, but my wife and I enjoy watching Dancing with the Stars. It's actually not a bad show. I mean, and our daughter, our 12-year-old, likes it as well. But I was watching this last couple of weeks ago. We're on tape delay, where I think we're a week or two behind. But one of the contestants got ill. She was one of those housewives from Atlanta show. Why that person's labeled a star? I won't go there. But
don't get me started on that
Housewives
stuff,
of Atlanta.
please.
I mean, but the issue there was she got ill, was not able to rehearse, and couldn't make the show. And so, do we have a caller, Andrea?
Can you read that? Can you read that one?
I think it was Andrea. You know what? I'll tell my story after this. Why don't we? Andrea's waiting on the line. Hello, Andrea.
Yes.
Hi. How are you doing this evening?
Very good.
What can we help you with?
I'd like to ask you a question. My husband got very sick, and he had to go in a nursing home. So I hired a lawyer because his insurance is running out, and he had to go into Medicare and then eventually Medicaid. So he passed away in May.
Oh, I'm
sorry to hear that.
First, I got a letter from the gastroenterologist doctor asking for money. And I told him, well, he has Medicaid, and he was approved, and I have his number. And he said, no, I don't accept Medicaid. So they said either they were going to accept it as a loss or come after his estate. But I haven't heard anything. It wasn't that much. Now, I just got a bill from another doctor for $6,500. And when I called, the same thing. He doesn't accept Medicaid. So they're going to try calling Medicare, but I know that they won't. It went into Medicaid. What can I do in that case?
Wow, that's hard to answer without seeing all the paperwork, because it depends on, was the doctor at the nursing home facility, or is it someone they called in from the outside? Do you know?
Well, no, he had to go into the hospital for this operation. He had an ulcer in the back.
Right.
Okay.
And the thing is, he died a month after it, and every day he was in pain. It's like, I'm sorry you even had that operation.
Yeah, Andrew, this is Gus Bravo talking. This sounds like a classic question for a probate attorney. Neil and I do a lot of different areas. The one area we do not practice in is probate. So, the what comments we're going to give you are more of off the cuff, what our thoughts and impressions would be. But obviously, I'm sorry.
I can't hear you that well. Can you talk a little louder?
Okay, sure. So this is, I think, a question for a probate attorney.
Yes.
But that being said, my feeling would be that they've already mentioned they're going to make a claim against the estate. I think that's their only avenue because contractually you're not on the hook for the debt. I mean, that's a debt that your husband had or his estate would have. So they would have to go in through the probate, I believe, and make a claim against that. And if you're telling me there's not much there, my sense would be it's probably is just going to end up, and then you won't hear from them again. But before you pay them anything, I would suggest that you contact a probate attorney because this is the kind of question that, frankly, they would be able to answer in probably less than 5 minutes. This type of fact pattern, I'm sure you get it. I mean, they get it all the time. Folks that have incurred medical bills, and then they unfortunately pass away, and then the surviving spouse is left with the debt. So, I mean, what we can do is we can probably, if you contact either one of our offices, we can actually give you a name or two of probate attorneys that we can recommend.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you want to call, I don't know if you're where you can write a number down, but it's 786-464-0841. Ask for our assistant, Gloria. Tell her that you called in on the show and need a referral for a probate attorney. And we'll try to remember to tell Gloria in the morning, give her a couple of names. If not, she'll ask us and get a number from you, and we can call you back with some names.
Right. But do not pay anything until you've spoken to a probate attorney, because I think the answer is going to be they have to make sure they have to dot their I's and cross their T's. And the ship may have sailed for them being the doctor and the medical providers who perfected their claim, if you will, against the estate. Okay?
Yes. I feel bad because the lawyer I hired said to me, you won't have to pay anything. You'll be protected with Medicaid. And now they don't accept Medicaid. So that surprised me.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the reasons I was asking about whether they're affiliated with a nursing home, because the nursing home should have coordinated that issue. There are plenty of doctors that accept Medicaid, and the nursing home may have some liability if they didn't inform you of what the billing process was. So there's a lot of potential issues there.
And if you had a lawyer for that'd be, I don't know how the relationship is now, but that would also be my first call. Because obviously that person's familiar with your fact pattern,
and they may know a probate lawyer that they work with.
Right.
So that might make more sense too. But if they're not able to help you that route, call the number I gave you, ask for Gloria, and she can get you the name of some probate lawyers.
Okay. Thank you, Andrea. Best of luck to you. Okay. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah. Sorry for your loss.
Thanks.
All right. So now we got to make the segue to your story.
Sorry, Dancing with the Stars. So anyway, the contestant,
That's a terrible segue.
It is a segue, but the contestant wasn't able to compete. And they were talking on the show about how everybody wanted to give her a chance to come back, even though she couldn't compete. The fans aren't going to vote her off. Could she come back? And it was a classic. Tom Bergeron said, well, we wanted to bring her back, but the lawyers won't let us.
Nice.
And it was just, as I'm watching that, I'm thinking, everybody just loves blaming their lawyers. Right. It's the good cop, bad cop. I'm not going to take responsibility. The rules are that you can't compete. It's a competition, and the lawyers, take it up with our lawyers. And I'm just thinking, it's so common.
To play devil's advocate,
right.
A lot of times that's the advice I give my clients. Just
blame it on me?
Blame it on me.
Yeah.
Tell them, listen, this is what I want to do, but my lawyer wants to do X, Y, Z. So make the client look like the good guy, and it helps them try to negotiate a better deal.
Makes for good TV.
I mean, but your point is absolutely well taken, because it's like, the lawyers. I had someone today say to me, they're about to acquire a large purchase of something. I'm not going to say what, but there's a contract, and so the person wanted to have a lawyer look at it. And he goes, because they had a lawyer, and they have a lot of all the legal mumbo jumbo and stuff that they put in there. You know how lawyers are, and so yeah, I do actually. But you're right. We're an easy target.
Well, and when you buy a car, How many of you looked at the salesman and you're filling out this long contract and you're going, guys, they have to be this long? And what does the car salesman say? Damn lawyers. Right?
Well, birthday party is a perfect example. If you ever go to any birthday party, there was one this weekend where you're jumping around or doing anything.
You mean like at my gym or one of those
and you
places
have to sign those waivers. And I joke about the damn lawyers, you know. But it's true. I mean, the reality is you need to have one. Just
be careful when you sign those waivers because some of them are overwritten.
But Neil, here's the reality.
But you're not going to let your kid go to the party?
Exactly. You're going to be that guy? No, I'm sorry. I'm not going to let my kid because this waiver is overly broad.
I'm crossing out the gross negligence language.
But you know what's funny? The one I went to this weekend, they actually have it on the computer screen, so you can't even make any revisions to it. You either accept, and then you got the kid waiting there for you to finish up filling all the information, ready to go jump. And so talk about undue pressure, undue influence.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you with Sophia, but Samantha bats her eyelashes, and I'm going to sign whatever I need to sign, right?
Of course.
But Daddy.
Of course. So look, I think. Well, I'm sorry. Your story.
No, that was. I mean, I was going to talk about how we seem to get so much. I think one of our first shows was the view of lawyers in society, society's view of the legal profession, and it just came full circle to me when I was watching that. And I turned to my wife. Really, he's got to blame the lawyer. It's the rule. You don't need the lawyer's advice. It's a competition. If somebody can't compete, they're out.
Well, I'm not sure the lawyers are there for that. I mean, I think it's they can make their own rules.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality. It's kind of
the
like
producers. It's not.
You
the
ever
lawyers.
seen the quiz show? The movie, The Quiz Show?
Oh, yeah. It's Ray Fiennes.
Yes.
Great movie.
Well, but you know how they kind of change the rules as they go along to try to make it fit. It's TV.
Right.
I'm curious, Dancing with the Star, what other guilty pleasure do you do? Dancing with the Stars and Housewives?
No, we don't. That's actually the only show we watch that I would characterize as a reality show that's not, other than game shows. We love Family Feud with Steve Harvey. He's just, he is. He is so funny.
He is as good as it comes. So, look, we got our 2-minute warning now. So, I will give you a whole whopping minute to do the takeaway of today's very substantive, informative, and memorable show.
It makes a summary. It makes absolutely 0 sense to pay $6.3 million for a plate of calamari. But
Nice.
with respect to a basketball coach who seems to win national championships, apparently $6.3 million if your name is Calipari is acceptable. That and firing a football coach who is at a school which has a very strong history of success, firing a coach because he manages to lose at home 58-0.
It's a fireable offense.
Is a fireable offense. Other than that,
and if you're an employer,
pull
the trigger.
When you have an employee that commits an atrocity, get rid of them immediately. Because the longer you wait, the harder it will be to fire them later.
But talk to the lawyers first.
There you go.
So we have, hopefully, our producer's gotten our picture of the day.
We didn't send it to him until...
Well, if not, but I will read it here. And in honor of my daughter's birthday, this is from Christopher Robin. You're braver than you believe, and stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. Christopher Robin.
Winnie the Pooh.
Yes. Happy birthday, Sophia.
Happy birthday, Sophia.
Tune in again next week to Attorney Confidential with Gus and Neil.
You have been listening to Attorney Confidential with Gus Bravo and Neil Kotze, 2 rated AV trial attorneys with over 40 years of experience. Tune in next week for another episode of entertainment, insight, and just plain fun. That's Monday, 6 p.m. on WNN, 1470 AM. See you next Monday for more Attorney Confidential. The opinion